Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Stotana Santa Shishimani Abhay Charanarvindam Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Stotana Santa Shishimani Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Shri Govardhan Ki Jai. Wow, I just noticed Ashdasaki Apurva is here with us. Ashdasaki, thank you so much for joining us. Oh my Krishna. That's amazing. Ashtasaki's been really, really sick, everyone. Please, please pray for her, okay?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Haribol. Okay. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasani Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Samvekta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, today we're reading the good old standard, Canto 7, Chapter 11, Text 25, which we didn't do the whole time during Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood. So we're starting off the real Fascinating Womanhood with 7-11-25. So please turn to your 7-11-25 verse in whatever you have, book or phone. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyanatimanandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Minatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Angum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarina. Okay, Canto 7, Chapter 11, Text 25. Srinam cha patidevanam tatshushrushanukulata tad bandhushvanuvrittischa nityam tad vatadaranam. Srinam, please repeat, of women. Cha, also, patidevanam, who have accepted their husbands as worshipable. Tatshushrushah, readiness to render service to her husband. Anukulata, being favorably disposed towards her husband. Tat bandhushu, unto the friends and relatives of the husband. Anuvritti, being similarly disposed to treat them well for the satisfaction of the husband. Cha, and nityam, regularly. Tat, vrata, dharanam, accepting the vows of the husband or acting exactly as the husband acts. Translation: to render service to the husband, to be always favorably disposed toward the husband, to be equally well disposed toward the husband's relatives and friends, and to follow the vows of the husband. These are the 4 principles to be followed by women described as chaste. Please repeat. To render service to the husband, to be always favorably disposed toward the husband, to be equally well disposed toward the husband's relatives and friends, and to follow the vows of the husband. These are the 4 principles to be followed by women described as chaste. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is very important for a peaceful householder life that a woman follow the vow of her husband. Any disagreement with the husband's vow will disrupt family life. In this regard, Chanakya Pandit gives a very valuable instruction. Dampatyoho kalaho nasti tatra shrihi swayam agataha. When there are no fights between husband and wife, the goddess of fortune automatically comes to the home. A woman's education should be conducted along the lines indicated in this verse. The basic principle for a chaste woman is to be always favorably disposed toward her husband. In Bhagavad Gita 1:40, it is said, Strishu dushtasu varshneya jayate varnasankaraha. If the women are polluted, there will be varnasankara population. In modern terms, the varnasankara are the hippies who do not follow any regulative injunctions. Another explanation is that when the population is varnasankara, no one can know who is on what platform. The varnashram system scientifically divides society into 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. But in varnasankara society, there are no such distinctions, and no one can know who is who. In such a society, no one can distinguish between a brahmana, a kshatriya, a vaishya, and a shudra. For peace and happiness in the material world, the varnashram institution must be introduced. The symptoms of one's activities must be defined, and one must be educated accordingly. Then spiritual advancement will automatically be possible. So back to the translation. To render service to the husband, to be always favorably disposed toward the husband, to be equally well disposed toward the husband's relatives and friends, and to follow the vows of the husband. These are the 4 principles to be followed by women described as chaste. Purport. We'll go through the purport again and we'll discuss it. It is very important for peaceful householder life that a woman follow the vow of her husband. So it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada jumped to the last of the 4 instructions for the beginning of his purport. So what does that mean? That essentially means that Srila Prabhupada is putting emphasis on this one, on following the vows of the husband. And how does he define following the vows of the husband? He defines it in the word-for-word synonyms as acting exactly as the husband acts. Now, questions may come up, well, what if my husband is not behaving in an exemplary way? Do I have to do what he does? No. In that case, you know what is proper, and actually so does he, if he's a devotee. He knows what the rules and regulations are. He knows how to behave properly. If he is having a temporary fall down or a temporary lapse of enthusiasm and strictness, then we don't need to follow his example in that case. But when he is following properly, then of course, we must also follow properly. And as we've discussed before, Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj said that in the strict sense of the term, following the vows of the husband means to follow the practices of his varna. That means you do what the ladies do in that varna. So, and usually when I give classes on this verse, I like to share my realization that following the vows of the husband means also to be obedient. Because the husband is the leader of the family, he needs to feel that he's accepted as the leader. And so we have a perfect opportunity if our husband gives us an instruction or a task, that we carry it out or that we follow it properly the way he would want us to follow it. And in that way, we're protected and we're going through the parampara. We're following the instructions of our husband, who is our Pati Guru, and his Guru, and his Guru, and his Guru, all the way up to Krishna. So we're protected if we're obedient. And if a situation comes up where we feel like we can't obey, then we can talk to Krishna about it, pray to Krishna, My dear Lord, my husband has told me to do something that I feel wrong about or I feel incapable of doing. You please protect me, Lord. Help me to be obedient, and at the same time, please help me to please you at every moment of my life. And Krishna will carry what we lack and preserve what we have. He promises that. Okay? So, Srila Prabhupada says, any disagreement with the husband's vow, that is a really hard word for me to say because of my vocal cords. So just please bear with me, dear friends. Any disagreement with the husband's vow will disrupt family life. Well, of course, if you take following the husband's vow as being obedient, if you're rebellious and you don't follow the instructions of your husband, or if you disobey him in some way, disregard his wishes, then of course that's going to disrupt your family life. And not only does it disrupt in the immediate moment, but it also teaches your children how to be disrespectful, how to be disobedient. And that's not going to help them in their lives. Children need to learn how to submit to an authority. Srila Prabhupada said that the natural instinct is to obey some superior person. So that's natural in all of us. It actually comes from the spiritual world. It comes from Krishna. So we should follow that and listen to that tendency in our heart. And if we're in an unfortunate situation where we can't follow our husband, if he wants to mislead us and misguide us, then we have to follow our guru as best we can and pray for our husband and encourage him with sweet words. Find something to admire and tell him, I like this about you. I appreciate this about you, whatever it is. And gradually, hopefully, he will come to the point of being a responsible devotee. In this regard, Chanakya Pandit gives a very valuable instruction. Dampatyo kalaho nasti tatra shri swayam agataha. When there are no fights between husband and wife, the goddess of fortune automatically comes to the home. Srila Prabhupada says in another place that she chooses of her own accord to come live in that home where there are no fights between husband and wife. So we're very fortunate if Lakshmi Devi lives in our home. And it doesn't, if Lakshmi resides in our home, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're rich, that we're wealthy financially, but it means that there's harmony in our family, and that there's Krishna consciousness. That's the greatest wealth. And our dear Lalita Saki and her husband have just purchased a farm near Dallas, Texas, and they are also practicing Varnashram, planning to practice Varnashram Dharma on that farm. So this is a great offering to their Guru Maharaj and to the disciplic succession and to Lord Krishna ultimately. So she has made a strong, concerted effort, our Lalita Sakhi, to support her husband and cooperate with him, even though she may have had some reservations in her heart or in her mind. She nonetheless prayed to Krishna to give her strength to be submissive and cooperative. And now just see, Krishna is making wonderful things happen in her life. We're proud of you, Lalita.
Thank you, Mataji. I don't deserve this.
Hare Krishna. Okay, now Srila Prabhupada says, a woman's education should be conducted along the lines indicated in this verse. So how many of us have been to university? How many of us learned during those 14 or 16 or 18 years that we were in school and college and university? How many of us learned about rendering service to the husband, being always favorably disposed toward the husband and toward his relatives and friends, and following the vows of our husband, being very obedient? How many of us learned about those principles when we were in school? Not. I didn't. I learned how to be rebellious. I learned how to be lusty. I learned how to be bold and brassy. You know what that means? Bold and brassy. It means too talkative, too loud, and just the opposite of chaste and shy. So now we're having to unlearn those things that we learned in school. The basic principle for a chaste woman is to be always favorably disposed toward her husband. So now, first Srila Prabhupada mentions the fourth instruction of Narada Muni. Now he's mentioning the second. Well, let's see what else he says. In Bhagavad Gita 140, it is said, Srishu dushtasu varshneya jayate varnasankaraha. If the women are polluted, there will be varnasankara population. Okay, so now, how do those two sentences complement each other? Let's go back. The basic principle for a chaste woman is to be always favorably disposed toward her husband. Then Srila Prabhupada says, if the women are polluted, there will be Varnasankara population. So, what we can conclude from the way he constructed those two sentences and put them together is that if we want to be pure, then we should practice being always favorably disposed toward our husband. And if we ignore that instruction and we disregard our husband, if we are hateful toward him or cynical or snide, or if we fight with him, then we are attracting pollution toward ourselves. So this is very important. We want to become pure. We want to become pure devotees. So Krishna has given us a perfect setup to practice learning purity, to practice cleansing our heart of anarthas, especially pride and this chance that we have to serve our husband, to be always favorably disposed toward him. One, by the way, one really good way to remain always favorably disposed toward our husband is to always keep him in our prayers, to always pray for him. If we're always praying for him, then naturally we feel loving and we feel that we wish him well. We're not going to pray for something bad to happen to our husband. Of course not. We're only going to pray for something that's beneficial for him. So see how nicely that works? If we're always praying for some blessings upon our husband, then naturally we feel favorably disposed toward our husband. Okay. So in modern terms, the Varna Sankara are the hippies. Now, Srila Prabhupada wrote this in the 1970s. And he also, I just heard recently that Varna Sankara also means the, I don't know if I should say this in public, but he indicated it meant a certain class of people who eat meat and who are sometimes violent toward toward others without any cause. They just attack other people of other religions without even having any reason to do so, without being incited. So these are also Varna Sankara population. They're very, they can be very demoniac. There are people who belong to that group who are actually quite good people. But anyway, I should be more careful and clear about what I say on YouTube. So I'll be watching myself from here on. Okay. So the hippies in those days, the hippies did not follow any regulative injunctions. So those are the Varna Sankara. Another explanation is that when the population is Varna Sankara, no one can know who is on what platform. Well, that reminds me of when my younger son, for a couple of years, because I had to work with my husband and I could no longer homeschool my son, we put him in a school which is called, it was sort of like a homeschool, but it was a public school. It's called an open school. And it was so casual that the children, no matter how small they were, they would call their teachers by their first name. So my son called his teacher Judy instead of Mrs. whatever her last name was. So in that school, there was almost no division between students and teachers. So in Varnasankara society, it's like that. No one knows who is a Brahmin, who is a Kshatriya, who is a Vaishya, and who is a Shudra, because nobody has been trained. Srila Prabhupada told us that when a child is very small, when he's just born, it's the duty of the father to have his astrological chart read, and the child's varna should be determined. Of course, he's born into the family of his father, and so naturally he will follow the example of the father, but he should also be trained according to his own propensities. So Srila Prabhupada told us that there should be a Varnashram college in every temple. Every ISKCON center should have a Varnashram college. And he especially emphasized that the boys should be trained according to their propensities. And if they have Kshatriya inclinations, if they're always picking up sticks and pretending that they're arrows or swords, then they should be trained as Kshatriya. And bless Maharaj's heart, Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj, he's actually training boys in Kshatriya arts. So that's really, really commendable. Okay, the Varnashram system scientifically divides society into 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. But in Varnasankara society, there are no such distinctions. And no one can know who is who. In such a society, no one can distinguish between a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, and a Shudra. For peace and happiness in the material world, the Varnashram institution must be introduced. So thank you again to all the devotees who have started farms and who are trying to practice Varnashram. Varnashram doesn't just mean growing your own food. It also means to follow the social norms, the social etiquettes, and train Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras to act within the community of the farm according to their propensities, their inclinations. So we hope and pray that this will be instituted within our ISKCON society so that we can be an example to the rest of human society. The symptoms of one's activities must be defined, and one must be educated accordingly. So Srila Prabhupada is going back to the last sentence on the first page. A woman's education should be conducted along the lines indicated in this verse. Now, he concludes his purport by saying the symptoms of one's activities must be defined. So, by Narada Muni's mercy, we have very clear definition of what our own duties are. So that's very helpful. It's very helpful. And because Narada Muni has so kindly told us what our duties are, then our mind can be free to make spiritual advancement. Srila Prabhupada says, the last sentence, then spiritual advancement will automatically be possible. So, such a nice arrangement that Srila Prabhupada very kindly spent sleepless nights translating these beautiful books into English for us to relish and to learn from. So we should show our gratitude by reading these books and practicing the teachings. Sri Lekha, are you here with us tonight?
Yes, Mataji. Danvat Pranam. I'm there.
Girl, I noticed in your reading log yesterday, you had finished reading the first chapter of Fascinating Womanhood, so that's very good. Who else read the first chapter, Celestial Love?
I read it, Mataji.
Good girl, thank you, Shraddha. Who else? I read it. Hare Krishna.
I also read Mataji.
Who is this? Rati
Rati Priya.
Haribol, Rati Priya. Thank you for
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I've been reading this book for 40 years, and I've never gotten tired of it. It has given me so much inspiration and so much practical guidance. I feel that Helen Andelin was inspired by Krishna within her heart to write this book. Even though there are some kind of bombastic ideas in the book, she talks about love way more than we normally do as devotees. We normally fall back on Srila Prabhupada's teachings that there really is no love in this material world. The closest thing to it is the love between a mother and a child. But Srila Prabhupada also did say that there is love in marriage. And in fact, at the end of one of the purports, where Prabhupada is telling the story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, he says that this exchange of love between husband and wife is the ideal of householder life. So he also said that in the beginning, when especially he was talking about when there's a marriage between a very young girl and a very young boy, he said in the beginning there's no love, but gradually, as the girl reaches puberty, she's allowed to go and live with her husband, and then she can serve him more continuously. Before that, when she's living with her parents, she just gets to serve her husband once in a while. She'll maybe cook something for him, go see him occasionally. But then when she's older and she's allowed to live with her husband, then she gets to serve him all the time. And so then he also feels obliged to her, and he reciprocates with her. And the more she serves him, the more he feels inspired to do his duty, which is to protect her, provide for her, and guide her. So These are the natural exchange of loving service between husband and wife. And as the husband and wife get older, then Srila Prabhupada said, they become so fond of each other that they cannot be separated. So we talked about this, I think, last week, how Indira Saki put a sweet little story in her book, How I Achieved Real Success, about a cleaning lady that came and took care of them when they were, I think it was in the US. And this cleaning lady had never been away from her husband. She had been married since she was very young. And so she and her husband were very attached to each other. And it became so difficult for her. She was feeling so homesick that Indira Saki and her husband had to let her go back to India and rejoin her husband. So, very sweet story about the close relationship between husband and wife. So, so then Srila Prabhupada does admit, he says that after they've been together for a long time, then they become so fond of each other, so loving toward each other, that they find it difficult to remain separate. So basically what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness as wives of devotees is we're trying to become Krishna conscious. We're trying to become pure devotees, awaken our love for Krishna. And at the same time, we're trying to serve our husband, thinking of him as Krishna's devotee. And so it's kind of like two tracks, almost like two tracks. The railroad tracks are parallel. And so because they're parallel, they're perfectly parallel. So the train's able to run on the tracks smoothly. So we should be cultivating our pure Krishna consciousness and at the same time serving our husband as nicely as possible. And we do the service to our husband as a service to the Lord. We pray, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please accept my service to my husband as my service to you. And kindly be pleased with my efforts. There was an interesting story that Srila Prabhupada told that came to my mind when I was reading the section about Shah Jahan and Mumtaz. Prabhupada told a story that there was a writer, and not sure if he gave the name of the person. I don't recall it anyway. And this person, he wrote a book and he titled it Shah Jahan. And the whole book, during the whole book, Shah Jahan was in prison because his son, I have to think of his son's name. Somebody remember? What is the name of Shah Jahan's son who was such a demon?
Aurangzeb?
Aurangzeb, thank you, Prabhuji. My husband remembered. So Aurangzeb, when he became lusty to take over the empire, he captured his father and he put him in prison. And Aurangzeb was so cruel. He was mistreating the people like anything. I don't know the whole history. I just know that his father, when he was in prison, he was hearing about his son's misbehavior and his poor leadership practices, and he was suffering. He was suffering in his heart because of his son's misbehavior. So one friend of the author, I'll just tell you this story because it's interesting. One friend of the author came to the author and he said, "Why did you name your book Shah Jahan?" And the author said, "Only the author knows the purpose of the book. No one else knows the purpose." So Shah Jahan, for the whole time, during the whole story, he was in prison and he was hearing about the sinful activities of his son, Aurangzeb, and his heart was pained. So that is why I have named my book Shah Jahan, because Shah Jahan is actually the hero of the story. So who knows if Helen Andelin ever truly revealed the purpose of her book. She may have had a secret inspiration. But whether she did or not, we'll never know. But if we follow the principles in this book, and we follow the principles in Srila Prabhupada's books, then we'll be safe. We'll be in a very good position. So the next section is it selfish? Is it selfish to want to be loved by our husband? Well, she says no, it's not. It's not selfish to want to be loved by our husband. But we should always keep in mind that real love is possible only with Krishna. Real love is called prema. And prema is always preceded by the word Krishna. So Krishna prema, love of Krishna, is the only true love. So that is what we are cultivating. And by cultivating our Krishna consciousness, our love for God, then we are able to love everyone else. That is a fact. That is a principle that is taught by Srila Prabhupada and all the great acharyas. So when we love Krishna, we are able to love everyone else. And we'll be able to see everyone equally. Brahmin, elephant, a cow, a dog eater. We'll be able to see all of those souls equally if we love Krishna. So not only does following the principles of Fascinating Womanhood help our husband, but it also helps us. It helps us to feel fulfilled and happy because she actually teaches principles that are found in the Vedas. She may not have been aware of that, or she may have been. I don't know. She was a Mormon, but she was very open-minded. And when I told her, one time when I was talking with her on the phone, I told her that I'm a devotee of Krishna and I want to teach other devotees of Krishna Fascinating Womanhood course. So then she said, okay, well, let me make you a Fascinating Womanhood teacher. So she said, give me your address and I'll mail you a certificate. So I gave her my address and she mailed me a certificate. So I really appreciated that she was so open-minded, that she was willing to accept the devotee of Krishna as one of her teachers in her organization. So that impressed me a lot. So she says that love in marriage is the most important element in its success. And a happy marriage is the foundation of a successful family. And we can take that a little further by saying a happy and successful and Krishna conscious ultimately. So yes, we should seek to have a loving relationship with our husband, loving and respectful, and service-oriented relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. And the ending sentence in that paragraph, the happy home becomes a worthy contribution to the well-being of society, bringing peace to the world rather than the discord that arises from lack of love. Srila Prabhupada here, Helen Andelin was just talking about peace, world peace. Srila Prabhupada talks about world peace in so many places. He just talked about it in the in the purport that we just read. And he indicates that if we understand that Krishna is the supreme proprietor of all planets and demigods, if we understand that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, and if we understand that Krishna is the supreme friend of everyone, he said that that is the peace formula. Srila Prabhupada gave so many peace formulas, but that was the one that he emphasized the most. We understand that Krishna is the supreme proprietor and enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, and the best friend of everyone, including ourselves, then we'll be able to be peaceful, we'll help others to be peaceful, and that will spread. So that's the way of world peace. So I was appreciating on the last page of the chapter these three little, you could call them Falashruti or Shrutifal. She says, when you apply these teachings, you gain a greater understanding and appreciation for your husband. You learn to see his finer side, and therefore you learn to love him more. Oh, we've seen that to be true. When we made our lists of our husband's masculine virtues, and when we read over those virtues, we get inspired. We feel love for our husband when we read down the list, and my gosh, there's so many. I have so many in my list, like almost 150 qualities that my husband has. And I can meditate on these qualities and, appreciate them. Then number 2, she says, by living the principles of fascinating womanhood, you become a better woman with a more loving nature. You will have the capacity to love your husband more. And number 3, as you help your husband gain confidence and respect in himself and create a happier marriage and family life, he will have more incentive to make something worthwhile of his life. He will become a better man, one you can love more easily, more completely. So I have certainly seen that to be true. I wanted to show you all something. I don't know if you can see this. This is a photo of my husband right here when we first got married. And the 28th of this month is going to be our 39th wedding anniversary. Not for our Vivaha Yagya, but for our legal wedding. So when we went to get our marriage license in Southern California, we had never touched each other before. And we had to take our wedding rings with us. So we didn't have any wedding rings. So a friend of ours bought us some wedding rings, some gold rings, gold bands. So we took those gold bands to the courthouse, and we found the door said Justice of the Peace. So we went inside, and there was a lady in there across the counter, and she said, yes, may I help you? And we said, yes, we want to get our marriage license. So she said, okay. And she had us swear upon the Bible that we were dedicated to each other. And she said, okay, now you have to put each other's rings on. And because we had never touched each other before, we were both feeling very shy and very awkward. But somehow or other, we figured out how to put the rings on each other's hands. And she said, the lady said, now I pronounce you husband and wife. So then we went back to the temple. The house that we were living in at that time was a temple. It was a preaching center. And so we went back to the temple, and we cooked a feast to celebrate our marriage. So that was October 28th, 1981. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. Hare Krishna. Okay, does anybody have a question or a comment or a realization or an experience that they've had this past week or any time in your life that you'd like to share that you feel would be beneficial.
Mataji, I have one question.
Okay.
Sri Rekha. Mataji, my husband, for any of his business or any, in fact, even spiritual things, he asked me suggestions. And at that time, I feel that I'm not that eligible to give him suggestions. Like, because of course, like as we have heard that women don't have, they are not that intelligent as men are. So I feel my suggestions won't be, appropriate, and he gets irritated also that I don't suggest. I said, no, you are so wise, you take the decision. He said, no, I want you to tell me the decision. So because of this there is a conflict.
Well, you can think of it this way, that he's giving you an opportunity to serve him.
Okay.
So that is the service that he wants you to do at that moment. So you can pray very sincerely in your heart. Please, Srimati Radharani, Srila Prabhupada, and you can pray to your Guru Maharaj. Please let me be your instrument. Please let me speak what is truthful and beneficial for my husband. And just do your best. Do your best. Okay? It's a very nice service that he's giving you an opportunity to do. So you try your best and don't worry about it. Don't worry about being on a, feeling like he's putting you up on a pedestal. That's okay. That's okay. That's his prerogative. He can do that. Okay?
Okay, Mataji.
I hope that helps.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
Did anyone get a chance to write something in their love booklet this week?
No, Mataji, I didn't write anything, but
Neither.
I just showed gratitude towards my husband. Like I daily I have made a habit to write a diary in which I'm grateful to my husband. I write down for each and every family member that today I'm grateful to them for this act. So I do that.
Oh, that's really, really healthy. That's very good. Gratitude is such a healing emotion.
Yeah. And it is so like that day my daughter opened my diary and she was reading. So she's telling me, "Oh, Mama, you can't say this to me directly. Why are you writing in this diary?"
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Very nice. Well, after you leave your body, then they'll be able to read your diary.
Yes, Mataji. So one thing we like my Prabhu and we were discussing, my Prabhu said ki, how will I live? I want to go before you. I said, no, no, no. I like an astrologer has always told me, like, and I am very happy that I will go, is it like a married woman, I will leave the body, being a married woman. So that's not possible. So he said, no, but how will I live without you? I cannot live for a second, I'm so much dependent on you. So then, like, I was said, then what can I do? But I am sure that I'm going to live before you. So let's do one thing. Let's pray to Krishna that the moment I die, you also leave your body with me. So we were discussing all these things.
Oh, okay. Well, that's funny. Today I told my husband, because my husband did a really nice thing for me. My table that I keep my computer on was too low. And so he put some risers underneath the four legs of the table so that my table is higher. So I told him after he did that, it was so nice. I appreciated his service so much. I said, Prabhuji, you better not leave your body before me, because I don't know how I could get along without you. Hare Krishna. Well, I want everyone to cheer with me because my new little Airtel hotspot worked very well. It worked so well, we didn't have to sit and twiddle our thumbs and take a drink and, wait for the internet to come back on, like we've had to do so many times. So yay! I give my husband credit for it because he's the one who pushed me. He said, you need to have your own hotspot. So then today I walked over to Airtel and I said, I want my own hotspot. And the guy at the Airtel store, he looked at me like, but your husband already has one. I said, no, yeah, I know, but I need to have my own. Anyway, so I'm very grateful. Okay, my dear ones. So for next week, let's read chapter 2, The Ideal Woman. There's no homework, but we'll read The Ideal Woman, and then we'll discuss that next week. And I don't know yet which verse and purport we'll go over, but I'll surprise you as usual next week, okay? Okay, love you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji,
Thank you.
Dhanavada.